Thank you, Courtney. Hi, everybody. My name is Connie Curtis. I'm an alcoholic. Can everybody hear me? I'll try to use my outside voice. And thank you, Courtney, for calling me today. She called me this afternoon, and I do. I work at a equine rescue, and I was in the middle of massaging a horse, and she called me, and I said yes, I would do it, and I said, but I'm a little bit nervous about it. And then I hung up, and it's like, well, I have to be where I am, and what this program has taught me is that I have to be present. So it was good because I had to get back into that, and then I worked with two other sponsees before I got here, so I didn't have too much time to think about anything. And then we did a little prayer before the meeting. I just want to keep an eye on my time here, and so I take a deep breath, and hopefully what I share will help somebody, and we'll see what happens. And I heard somebody say once, I'm not sure what I'm going to say, and I'm not sure what you're going to hear. But hopefully it'll be something that'll help you stay sober today. So my sobriety date is July 13th, 1996. My sponsor is Courtney, and this is my home group, and I just joined it recently. So part of the feeling that I had today was like, you know what, it'll be a nice opportunity for you guys to get to know me a little better, because we've talked, we say hi to each other, but sharing my story will hopefully, just it'll be all right. So a little bit about what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. I grew up in Long Island, New York. I was the fifth of six children, and I didn't know it for many, many years, but I did have a family. My parents. I know my mom was an alcoholic. I'm not sure about my dad. He did drink every day, but I can't give him that label. But I didn't know that for many, many years. And what I remember growing up was that I was always afraid. I came out of the womb crying, and I continued to cry for like the next 43 years of my life, and until I got sober. And I just remember that I just didn't know how to do life. I was an easy crier, so I was teased. I had older siblings, and they made fun of me a lot. And I'd go to school, and I used to have I don't have it anymore because I guess I outgrew it, but I used to have a big freckle on the end of my nose, and I wore glasses by the time I was in first grade. And so I was picked on a lot because I was an easy target. And I just never felt like I fit in. And I hear that a lot in the rooms, that, that I didn't feel like I belonged, and I didn't feel like I fit in, and I was always trying to fit in, and I was always trying to make friends. And I was very naive. I was very gullible, and so I got set up a lot, and so, in that journey for me to find that connection and what was going to help me to feel like I belonged, by the time I got into junior high and high school, I found other non-approved non-approved AA stuff. And that's where I started, but I actively started drinking when I was 18, because in New York the drinking age was 18. And so I went on my way. I didn't think that I was that smart. I didn't do very well in school. I was partying, so I didn't really do much in school. And my older sisters and my brother were off to college and doing that stuff, and I just knew that wasn't in the cards for me. I barely got through high school. And I had an opportunity to travel to Germany. My father had a photography business. It was called Curtis School Photography. And so out on Long Island, we were very well known as the Curtis family, because he was a president of the Chamber of Commerce. He had this business, so everybody knew who the Curtises were. And so when he sold the business, he sold it to a gentleman who had an operation over in Germany. And I had an opportunity to go over there and learn how to do school photography and stuff. I never really did it with my dad, but when I had this opportunity to go to Germany, I was in heaven, because I was a beer drinker. I loved beer. And so moving to Germany and working over there was a great thing. And I was 18, I guess I was 18 and a half, 19 when I was there. And I ended up being there on and off for about a year and a half. And what I can say about that time in my life is that I got involved with one of the photographers that was there. I was 19, he was 38. I look back on it today. I can look back today with the eyes I have today, and I just think, oh my God, I just wanted so much just to be loved, And I put up with things that I shouldn't have put up with. And you know, drinking was a way for me to cope with it. And eventually we both got fired from our jobs because of our relationship. And I, so I ended up, I was going to go, like I said, I never know what I'm going to say, but this is coming up, so I'm going to tell you about it. So I ended up calling my father. They had retired and moved to Florida during that time. And I said, I want to borrow $5,000. And then I'm going to come back, and this guy's going to divorce his wife because he was married, and we're going to get married, and I'm going to live happily ever after. So by the time I left there, I had $8 in my pocket. We were still in an apartment, but we had nothing but like a hot plate. Like the boss had taken everything because he had provided everything. And I got back to the States, and once I had a little time away from him, and I weighed 108 pounds, I hadn't been eating a lot, I kind of got clarity that this was not really something healthy that I should be doing, and I was able to break away from that relationship. And again, I was drinking all the time, and I, you know, in my family, my older sisters, you know, they partied a lot, and so I kind of learned from them, and drinking was just a part of who I was. So I came back to the States. I was in Florida for a short period of time. I moved back up to New York for a period of time. I lived with my older brother, and then I went to a party in Yardley, Pennsylvania, where I met my future ex-husband. And I'd known him, like my sisters they all went to the same college, and it was a big party house. So we partied. We worked at a place called the Rusty Scupper, which was a really popular restaurant in Princeton. And so my days would be, you know, I'd get up in the morning, we'd get to work, we would, you know, do our work, and then we would party. I mean, there was always the after party. At that time, I played guitar, so I used to play there on the weekends, and you know, and sing and all that good stuff. But what I always remember, again, even in that time, is that, you know, the other girls were prettier. I don't know why he's with me. I mean, these were all the feelings that I went through, and drinking was something that helped me to feel a part of and to feel like I belonged and take away a little bit of that anxiety. So anyway, fast forward, you know, life went on, and we ended up getting married, and I had a baby. We actually got pregnant, we got married, had a baby, bought a house, and I continued to drink. And I'm one of those that, you know, I don't hear too many people, because my stories, I don't have a lot of the chaos and the drama. I never got arrested, I never lost a job, I didn't lose my family, I didn't have any of those dramatic things that I know happened to a lot of us, and in my own family. I had a sister that was in rehab. I had another sister that, you know, would make those 3 a.m. phone calls and fell out of a second-story window, had real tangible evidence that drinking might be a problem for them. But I kept a job, I had a marriage, I had my daughter, you know, and I raised her to the best of my ability, and drinking was just a part of my life. I mean, I controlled it, okay, for a really long time. And in that control, I would have periods of time where I don't say, I guess I lost control. My ex-husband worked at a nightclub, so he was gone a lot. And I had this young daughter she was a beautiful baby. She was very, very good. She slept all night. She was a really easy kid. She still is at 41. She's still a really easy kid to be around. She's a great kid. I love her to death. And but I had a period of time, and I don't know how long it lasted, that he would be at work, and you know, he wouldn't get home till 2 or 3 in the morning. She would go to bed, and I would break out whether I had Sambuca, my beer, sometimes it was champagne, sometimes I dabbled in a little bit of, you know, other things, and I would get inebriated. I would just get totally trashed. And I did that, and I don't remember how long that went on. It was usually the weekends, because that was the busy time for him. But at one point, I remember thinking to myself, I need to stop this. This is getting out of control. And so I did. I got back to my daily drinking. You know, I drink 2 beers. You know, on the weekends, I would drink more. On parties, I would obviously drink more. And that went on for a number of years. I had a job with the state of New Jersey. I'm a really high-functioning type of person in the sense that I was brought up with a very strong work ethic, so I was a really hard worker. And I took pride in what I did. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So everything, you know, I just had such high standards for myself that I could never meet for myself, that I was always beating myself up, all those things that, that I think happened, not just to people like us, but to really people anywhere. So my life went on. I had my daughter, I was going to work, my ex-husband was doing his thing, and life went on. I had we had the house, we had the 2 cars in the garage, I even had a real white picket fence. I had all the things that make things look like, life is good. What brought me to my bottom was my mom. Like I said, I didn't know that she was alcoholic for a long time. And what happened is that in 1994, she had had cancer back in the late 80s, I think it was, and she had survived it. And then in 1994, something came up, and she had some tests done, and they had to do some surgery, and the surgery was successful, but what ended up happening is that I think they inserted a wire and they punctured her lung, or they did something. And so the ensuing months after that, her health declined, and I was in New Jersey at the time. I worked for the state of New Jersey, and they were in Florida, and her health declined, and it got to a point where they had to make a decision, and so I got on a plane and I went down to Florida, and I was there. I wasn't there when she passed, but I had visited her, and then the next day she had gone. And what I remember about that time, and the reason I'm sharing this is because this was the start of my real bottom. And what I remember is that, I'm a real emotional person. Like I said, they used to call me Crying Connie my first 3 years of recovery, because all I did was, everything. I was always crying. Everything was just a big, I didn't get angry, I cried. And so what happened was, after my mom died, I felt nothing. And I thought, there's something wrong with me. Why, I cry at Hallmark commercials, and my own mom died, and what's going on here? So in that ensuing year, she died May 13th of 95, and she died the day before Mother's Day. And I went back to my life, and I started getting back to whatever. And what started to happen was that I started to get those things called feelings. And I never knew how to get angry. I would be stuff, rage. But I had a really hard time standing up for myself and to express myself and showing anger. So what happened was, my former husband and I started to fight and started to have arguments. And I started to get a little bit more outspoken. And I started to drink more. And on May 17th of 1996, one of the things in my job was that I didn't like where I was at. I was really unhappy, and I had actually gotten a position back into an old position that I had done for several years. So the last night that I drank, I was celebrating. And I went home. It was a beautiful May day. I remember there were clouds in the sky. I went in the backyard. My husband and daughter, she was 14 when I got sober. My husband and daughter, I sent them out to go have dinner. I said, I just want to bask in the glory that I don't have to go back to that place on Monday. And we moved from a building to another building, so it was like a whole new beginning. So that night was not my worst drunk. But I went out in the backyard, and I remember I had a 6-pack of beer. Miller Lite was my beer. And I drank a couple of glasses of wine, I think, and I think I had a Black Russian. Like, those were the other, beer was my main drink, but I would drink these other drinks occasionally. And it wasn't my worst drunk. I wasn't falling down. I think I was slurring my words. And when they got home, I was slurring my words a little bit, but we all went to bed and everything else. And I wake up the next morning, and I'll never forget it, because I remember I sat in that living room chair, and I can see it as I'm saying it. And I remember saying to myself, I'm an alcoholic. I finally just made that connection, that there was something wrong, and that I was an alcoholic. But I didn't go to AA right away. I was fueled by fear. I was in therapy at the time, so I knew something was wrong with me. And I was going to therapy, and I probably wasn't being real honest with her. But one of the things that she had eventually said to me is that you may want to go to a meeting. You may want to go to a meeting. And I was full of fear. I was afraid that if I walked into a meeting like this, that you guys were going to tell me 3 things. You were going to tell me, when I told you how much I drank, you were going to tell me I didn't drink enough and that I didn't belong and I would have to leave. I was afraid you were going to tell me to believe in a God that I had let go of many years before. And I was afraid that I was going to run into somebody that I knew. Those were my 3 fears. And so with her encouragement and suggestion, I finally walked into my first meeting on July 13th of 1996, which is what I use as my sobriety date. Between that time, I will share this real quick, between the time of May 18th and the day that I walked in, I was in bowling league, and of course we used to drink a lot of beer, and I didn't want the guys to think, oh my God, she's not drinking, so I did the O'Doul's thing for a while. And after talking to my first sponsor, my first year I did May 18th as my sobriety date, and in between the first and the second year after I cleared up, I made a decision to change it. Because I got more information, and I just felt, for me to be true to myself, that I really started my journey the day that I walked into my first meeting. So I came to meetings and I didn't drink, and I called my sponsor every day for like the first 8 years of my recovery. I was really needed. I look back at myself today, and especially when I'm working with newcomers that are like I was, and I'm like, oh my God, I was a lot. I don't know how they put up with me. I was just, everything was such a big deal. Everything was a big deal. And I didn't have the tools yet. I didn't have the steps. I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew is that I didn't want to drink anymore. I was tired of being afraid, and that I wanted to change. Those were the 3 things that plugged me into this program. So I started coming to meetings. My former husband did not support my recovery. He used to call it a cult, because one of my friends did, and one of my friends, that's another story for another time. But what I knew is that when I walked into a meeting, I felt safe. And I knew that there was something here that was going to help me. I just didn't know what it was. So I didn't drink, and I came to meetings, and I was really fortunate that where we moved to we were in Hamilton, New Jersey, we moved to Trenton, and I was 2/10 of a mile from a place called the Trenton, the Allan Club, which is the club, they call it the ER of AA in Trenton. It's like you just see everything there. So I would go to the noon times. I would leave and I'd walk over and I'd go to the noon times, and I remember we had a speaker here not too long ago that was from that area, and he talked about, all the nicknames that these guys had, so it was Tommy the Bull and Harry the Hat and Potato Chip Mike, and so all these long timers that they were crusty, they were tough, and I would go in there and I would see them sometimes not be so nice to some people that like shared inappropriately, which I did from time to time. And I can remember my sponsor saying to me, you might want to be careful, because I was an open book. I thought you needed to know everything about me. So I know that I shared inappropriately for a while. That I gave, not that I shared, I just gave too much information. And she would warn me. She said, just watch it at the club, because, they can be pretty brutal. But I got to tell you, these guys must have seen the willingness, because they were always so kind to me, and they just kept saying, keep on coming, keep on coming. There was one particular guy that I want to share a short story with. His name was TV Mike, and he was he was tough. He was just one of those scrappy old guys, and really tough, and just really, and I'm like a softie, I'm very sensitive, and all these things. So one day we were talking, and he said something to me, and I don't remember what it was, but it upset me greatly. And I was crying, and I left the meeting, and I called my sponsor. I was actually on my way to visit with her. She was at her place down at the shore, and so I went down to see her. And I was so upset. He said this to me, and oh my God, he hurt my feelings, and all that stuff. Well, about a week later, or a few days, whatever time it was, the next time I saw him, he really helped me. So he said to me, when I said whatever it was he said to me, and you got really upset? I'm like, yeah, I remember. And he said, you know what? He goes, you were really angry. And when he said that to me, it was such a light bulb moment, because, like I said, I had trouble expressing anger. I grew up in a household where my father was the one that had the anger, and that nobody else was allowed to have it. And I realized when he said that, I'm like, you're right, I am pissed off. And I think that part of the reason that I cried so much is because I was so frustrated, because I cried, I couldn't help myself. And I don't have the pretty cry. My eyes get red, the nose gets red. I don't have a pretty cry. And so, of course, then I'm very self-consumed with, oh my God, I look awful. And but that was another aha moment for me. And so I didn't drink, and I kept going to meetings, and I started working the steps with my sponsor. And so when we got to that, like I said, I had trouble with God. That was a real big thing for me. And so, what I love about Alcoholics Anonymous is that what I heard was, you don't have to believe anything right now. Just don't drink and come to meetings, and the belief will come. And then in that second step, came to believe that a power greater than myself would restore me to sanity. And it didn't have to be the God that I grew up with, which is what I equated it to, which was a very rigid, punishing, that was the God that I perceived growing up, the religion that I grew up in. So that was kind of a breath of relief for me. It was like, okay, I can do that. I can handle that. And step 3 baffled me for a long time, turning my will and my life over. I'm like, I don't get it. I just don't understand what it means. And you know what? My sponsor would just say to me, just practice. Like, practice is one of my favorite words. You just keep trying. Just keep an open mind, which they talk about here too. And so, then we got to the 4th step, and I was afraid to do it. Like I said, fear ruled my life. And every sponsor that I've had, because I've had several along the way for different reasons, and I've never had a sponsor tell me what to do. What they would say to me is that, they would tell me what they did, and when I kept hesitating and saying, I'm not doing it, I haven't done it, she said to me, when the pain gets bad enough, you'll do it. When the pain gets bad enough. And then, of course, me being the complicated person that I am, when I finally started to do it, I had the big book one, and then I had a notebook, and then I had something else, and I totally overwhelmed myself. And I called her up. I said, I don't know what to do. She goes, Connie, pick one and put the other ones away. I needed a lot of direction. And my God bless my first sponsor. She would say things to me that I thought were just like such aha moments. I look today and I see what they really are. But at the time, it was so important to me. I'm like, oh my God, you're just so bright, and it just you just know everything, And I depended upon her a little bit too much until the day that I called her and she said, Connie, I can't talk to you right now, and it forced me to reach out to other people because I had a hard time with that. I'm a pretty outgoing person, but I'm also shy, and I'm also, I get insecure and all those different things. So I did the 4th step, and I will tell you that when we sat down to do my first 5th step, and I've done several along the way, whether a full one or a mini one, usually when I change sponsors, I try to go through some form of the steps so we can get to know each other. And I remember when we sat down and did that first 5th step, and we talked about the different things, and what I started to see, which was such a gift, were the patterns of my behavior. I was one that I was always the victim. People used to say to me, you're such a saint to be married to Rick. You're such a saint. And I ran with that. I'm like, I'm a victim. He's so mean to me. And you know what? And the truth is that I can be very passive aggressive. I could be very mean. And a lot of my lying that I did was I lied by omission. I just didn't say how I felt because I was so afraid. And with these steps and, with the practice of doing it and staying sober, and another thing that I'll say at this time as I'm thinking about it is that I came in with that gift of willingness, the gift of desperation, which is another word for me with that God thing. I love that, the gift of desperation. But I also came with the willingness that I was going to put my sobriety first no matter what. And I still have that willingness today, which I am so, so grateful for. Because like I said, my former husband did not support my recovery. And there was something about the magic of these rooms and coming in here and being able to hear the things like, you're not doing anything wrong. It is, because he would keep telling me, you're neglecting your daughter, you're doing this. And they would reassure me, you are doing the right thing and it's okay. Just keep coming and don't drink. And I promise you, this is what they would say to me, I promise you it will get better. And then somebody said that it is going to be me. I will get better. So I continued on with 6 and 7, looking at my character defects. And, I think that for me, it's humbling when I become aware, because I consider myself, and a lot of people that know me consider me, I'm a kind person. I have a lot of compassion. Believe me, I judge. I have judgments too. I'm not perfect, but I do try to look at people, and I try to be kind, and I try to be helpful, because I love people. I love being around people, and I try, especially the ones that aggravate me. I really try to, say, God, just help me to see this differently. Help me to look at this. Let me look at this person differently, and and that's really helpful. And all these things that I'm sharing now are about the the tools of this program, and it's practice. Every day, like when I think back, and I think back from when I first came into the rooms, and the lack of tools that I had, and what a mess I was, and just the patience that people had with me to help me, just encourage me, like little angels, it's okay, just keep on coming. And I would mess up, and I'd make a mistake, and thank God that, we had that 8th and 9th step, so I could kind of write down and make an amends, and practice that in 10, and say, okay, I got to do a daily inventory. And so at the time I have left, what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. So, what it's like now in my life is, it's amazing. It's not always good. I mean, life happens and things go wrong and everything else. And some of the highlights that I can think about in my recovery that's really helped me. When I was 6 years sober, I told you my dad he was a captain in the Army. He was very tough. After my mom died, he softened up a bit. And when I got sober, and before I came to AA, I made the decision that I was going to send him. I sent him this little book about something about dads, and something from Terry Bradshaw's, whatever the heck the name of that book is, I don't remember, but toxic children, parents, or whatever. And so I highlighted to him the things that I thought that he had done, okay? Again, I'm probably like a week sober without AA, and he sent it back to me with different highlights, and I was like, oh, he's such a, but I will tell you that from that time to when I came into the rooms and I started working on this program and these steps, I developed a relationship with my dad that was beyond my wildest dreams. And, he changed, and obviously I changed, he changed, and when the first time he got sick, he had cancer, he had a bladder cancer the first time. And the gift of this program was that I was on a plane and I was able to help take care of him. And then he got sick again, I think the following year. But again, because of this program, I had a relationship that I could talk to him. He would call me up. Now, my dad, like I said, he was a tough guy. He was really tough. But one of my sisters, that is no longer with us because of this disease, was one of those nasty, when she drinks, really bad, really nasty. And she would call him and just say these most horrible things to me. And he called me up one day almost crying. And all I could say to him is, Dad, she's got a disease, she doesn't know what she's saying, and that was really hard to see him hurting like that. And so when he got cancer again, he had brain cancer, and the day that I was flying down to help my younger sister lives down there, and to help her and help him and trying to figure out what the next steps were, well, he died the morning that I was flying down there, and I got to tell you, AA was there for me. They were just so much support, and then I want to get through a couple family stories, and I want to talk about sponsorship and stuff, because that's important too, and I'm just looking at the time. So I have a big family, and after my dad died, the family blew apart because of the darn estate, blah, 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 all that stuff. I'm not going to go into it. I'm sure a lot of you can understand how that all rolls. And my family, my younger sister and I were the executors, and so they didn't like, everything was split 6 ways. Everything was equal. They didn't like the way we did it, and they stopped talking to us. So for 7 years, my family did not talk to me. So I lost my father, and then I lost except for my younger sister, obviously. And what I learned in this program, what you guys taught me, was to just reach out and to let go. So I prayed. I would reach out. I'd send cards. Some of them I didn't even have their phone numbers. They wanted nothing to do with me. And I just kept praying, and I kept reaching out and letting go, because that's what you guys told me to do. And in March of, what year did she die? 2009, I think it was. One of my second oldest sisters, I sent her a card. And I don't know whether this is what got to her or not, but what I wrote in there was, there's a hole in my heart where my sisters used to be. And I don't know whether that was what got her attention or whatever, but she did reach out to me. So that was in March. And then in June, her and my other sister, Carol, the three of us got together in New York. Krista lived in Florida. And then she went home, and long story short, so she got home and she gave me a call in September. She said, I have a tumor on my spine. And what ended up happening is that it turned out she had stage 4 lung cancer. And she died in November, I think it was a week before Thanksgiving. So again, I went down to Florida, and I was with her. She was in hospice, and she actually got better once she went to hospice, because they had her on so many medications that once she got to hospice, they regulated it, and she seemed to improve, but she still was going to go. And so what I did, because I do this everywhere, is I went to meetings, and I went to meetings. And she was actually getting better, and I had to go home. So I went to a meeting on a whatever day it was. It doesn't matter. It might have been a Friday, and I was feeling, really low. And of course, I don't know a lot of people in Florida at the meetings because I'm just there for the short time. So I walked into this meeting, and I went to the back, and I had my ball cap on, and I sat in the back, and I had my head down like this because I didn't want anybody to talk to me. I was feeling very vulnerable, and all of a sudden, I hear this guy, and he says, oh, no, you can't be sitting back here. And I look up, one of the hospice nurses that my sister had was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I just looked at him, and I said, I knew there was something special about you. I mean, that's to me how the God moments happen. It's like, oh my God, I just felt, because you got to come sit up with us, and what a gift, to know that my sister was being so well taken care of, and that a member of Alcoholics Anonymous was there. And so she ended up passing in 2009, and then in 2015, I had a series of events. So my sister that was the chronic alcoholic, in January of 2015, she had a massive stroke and she passed away due to alcoholism, absolutely. I don't know how they listed it, but I know that was it. And in kind of joking way, I called my brother, who lived out in western Pennsylvania at the time, he's the oldest, and I said, Bob, I don't want to be morbid, but just make sure you have your affairs in order, because, because hers was kind of a mess and whatever. And he goes, I'm not going anywhere. 3 days before we were going to have a little reunion, he was found dead at his home. He had died, we think, of a stroke, and he'd been gone for about 3 days, so my husband and I had to go out there, and I found out again I was the executor. Same thing happened. I have 2 siblings left. They didn't talk to me for a while, and one of them lives here, and and my other sister who lives in Florida actually has a place in Maggie Valley as well. I did the same thing. I reached out and I let go, and I reached out and I let go. And this past spring, I finally got in touch with my older sister. And my older sister can be hard. She's one that could be she could be nasty too, but she's older, and her health is declining, and she hadn't been out of the house literally in 3 years when COVID hit. She just stayed home. And so I went up there, and I saw her, and all I said to myself is that I just hope she doesn't bring anything up from the past. I just want to enjoy my sister. And she didn't. And I go up once a month to help her get her hair cut, and we go out for lunch, and that's about as much as she can do, because she's got some health issues. And then my other sister, Kathy, I just saw for the first time since then. On our way back from Pigeon Forge, we stopped in Maggie Valley. She was up there. Thank you, my current husband, because he found out on Facebook that she was there. I didn't know, and so I was able to see her after 7 years, I think it was. So you know what, and that's all to me because I'm sober and because I practice these principles to the best of my ability, and and it's we're not going to be close. We're very different, but I can be of service. You know, what I've learned is that how can I be of service to my family? How can I be helpful? It's not going to be what it was when we were younger, you know, we're not going to have that closeness, but I can be there and I can meet her. And I say this a lot, I try to meet people where they are instead of where I think they should be or have an expectation. So that I just wanted to share that because I know that families can be. I know that family for me was very triggering, and I went back to the little girl and I'd be with them, or the little sister, and this program and practice and all the ingredients of helping others and having a sponsor have helped me to get to that place where I can really enjoy my family. I can genuinely enjoy my family, which is just amazing. So, so again, with today, I do sponsor several women. I lived in New Jersey up until a little over 2 years ago. We retired and moved down here. So I still have a number of them up there because they just don't want to let me go. So we meet on Zoom. And I get up there a couple of times a year, so I get to see them. I have one that I met on a Zoom meeting in New Jersey, and she lives in Germany. So that's been and she's a delight. It's so much fun. To be able to help, and they're all different, and I love doing that. I love working with them. It teaches me to be accountable for myself, and also to take away that people pleasing. Say I'm going to say this to you. You may not like it. You might get mad at me, and oh my God, I don't like people getting mad at me. But I also have learned that I'd rather somebody be pissed off at me and stay sober than for me not to say something and then they go out and drink. Not that I can do that. I mean, I get that I can't make anybody stay sober. I can't get anybody drunk. But it's up to me as a sponsor to be as honest as I can to help them when I see something that might be threatening their sobriety. So that's a delight. They keep me busy, and I love it, and I love my sponsor. I mean, I just, it's I've had a lot of sponsors over the years and stuff, and I was really, really grateful when I met Courtney, and she just welcomed me in, and I just feel very warm, and that's why one of the reasons I joined this group too. So in the couple minutes I have left, I have remarried. I remarried. We're coming up on 20 years. George, some of you may have met him. He's been here before, and he's my best friend. I wasn't perfect at the beginning. We had a lot of problems at the beginning of our relationship, and but we just stuck it out. We just sometimes it's a relationship. It's sometimes when it's time to go. Like with my former husband, I just knew. I just knew it wasn't going to work. With George, we had our issues, and we were just both willing to look at it and to work on it. And today he's my best friend. I mean, it's just amazing, and he supports me in everything I do. He's very supportive of my program. Some of the miracles of this program, and it's not about material stuff. I mean, it really isn't. But I started doing pottery last year, and I did a coloring book back in 2018, and I started doing calendars, and now I have a place at Twig, and and that's all fun. I've been thinking about that, and that's all fun to have. But to me, it's fun, but it's not that important. Being with people is important, and like I said at the beginning, I found a rescue because I love horses. Have always loved horses, and I've been away from them for a long time. And in 2007, I got certified as an equine massage therapist, and then I hurt my back, and life got busy. Well, I found this place in Southern Pines. It's like 6 minutes away from here, and I started doing volunteer work there. And I've been doing it now for a year, and I go 3 days a week. I groom, but I do massage to, they're all rescue horses. They all have their own health issues. And my gosh, talk about learning to be in the present. I mean, when I'm with them, because one of the ones I did was a draft horse. He's Mr. Big is his name, and he's really big. Like I had to stand on a stool to finish massaging him. But what I know when I'm there is that I have to be present. These are big animals, and I have to make sure that I'm present. And I think for me, that helps me to get in line and in tune with, like when I'm doing massage with them, it's like I look at them and I go, breathe, horses, breathe. And it reminds me, that I need to breathe. And it's all good. I mean, we had one, unfortunately, that we had to put down on Tuesday, and Her name was Kaylee, and I've been working with her for a while, and I knew that the time was coming, and I actually thought they were going to take care of it on Monday, and I got there on Tuesday, and she was there. And the first thing the volunteer coordinator said to me was, would you like to groom and massage her? And I'm like, oh my God, yes. So we spent that I describe it as like a quiet conversation where I just am there with her and, making her comfortable, as comfortable as I can, and just being in the stillness. And I equate that to recovery because, I have a hard time sitting still in many ways. I'm trying to meditate. I come and I go with it, but that is something that's really helped me to just be. And I think I might be done. I thank you so much. Thank you for calling me today, Courtney. I really wasn't nervous, but I was, you know what I mean? And now it's just like I'm here. You guys got to know me a little bit more, and I'm really grateful to be here. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you for letting me share.